Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is part 3 of the prequel, and this one is titled A Bold Reveal. And tomorrow it did. From around mid-morning, your mum felt the presence again, and she likened it to having tinnitus or ringing in the ears. At first it was mildly irritating, in that she wanted to know who or what it was that kept hovering around watching her, but then she reminded herself that this entity owed her nothing, and it wasn't up to her to decide if this creature or being wanted to show themselves or not. They were doing no harm, so she decided to just continue on with her life and let it be. Day after day, she felt this presence and grew to enjoy its company. Her life was a simple one. She did find pleasure in all the little things that she did, but she also had an aching in her heart, a loneliness that she longed to fill, and she found it amusing that even just this little presence was enough to bring her that comfort that she craved. It had been about the 2.5-week mark that your mum thought that she should probably try and move on to the next town. As much as I'm enjoying being here with my invisible companion, I should probably look at getting my caravan out of here before the wood rots in the soil. She thought, I will attempt to break it free today. Your dad flew towards his usual watching spot to watch your mother at work and settled down on a leaf, brushing his fingers through his hair to rub some of the excess water off from his morning bathe in the stream. She really is a beautiful human, he thought with a smile as he watched her tend her plants and then pick some leaves from them to use for her morning tea. I wouldn't mind trying her tea. It looks delicious, he thought, his heart aching in his chest. It had been a while since he had had anyone to talk to and was starting to feel rather lonely in the bush. Back home in the royal palace he always had people around. Back then he had dreamed of finding a hiding spot that no one knew about so he could be alone for a minute, but that dream never eventuated. Maybe I should try and speak with her, he thought as he stood up and brushed his hands on his light brown pants. If I scare her, then I'll do my best to calm her, and then I'll leave. But that thought saddened him. He didn't want to leave. He also didn't want to scare her. Gathering all the courage he had, he flew to behind a tree and turned into human form, standing there with a heavily beating heart as he debated on what to say first up. I'll just ask her what she's doing here, he thought, looking down at his hands and body, checking to make sure that he really was indeed in human form. He didn't want her to know his true identity. Taking one final breath in, he stepped out from behind the tree and looked at your mum, who was crouched down, side onto him, gently watering her plants again. A lady such as yourself shouldn't be alone here in the woods, he said in his best royal accent, trying to look strong and capable, expecting to possibly sweep her off her feet with such a beautifully spoken line. But this woman didn't even look up at first. It was almost as if she had expected him. She finished tending her plants and then stood up and faced him. It was only then that she paused for a second, her beautiful eyes calmly gazing into his. Why have you been watching me for so long before showing yourself, if you were concerned for my safety in the woods? She then asked calmly. This threw him. He had been envisaging either one of the two things happening here. One, she'd be terrified initially and be worried about who he was, or two, she would fall madly in love with him right on the spot and beg him to go with her. Well, this was more what he was hoping for, but this third option had completely thrown him. You don't seem surprised to see me, he asked, a little deflated. Sir, please tell me, why is a fairy interested in knowing what a human woman is doing deep in the woods? She then asked, her steady gaze giving him nowhere to run, and so he rightly froze on the spot. You can tell, he asked, letting his bravado guard down and looking very dejected indeed. Indeed I can, she replied, turning away from him and walking to the caravan to get her shovel and continue on with what she had been intending to do before he turned up. At first your dad didn't know what to do. She had taken the wind right out of his sails, and he stood there watching as she hopped back out of her caravan with the shovel in hand and walked to the front left wheel of her wagon and started to dig. He watched for a little bit and then came to his senses and hesitantly walked over. May I be of some assistance? He asked softly. She looked up at him and nodded, and then handed the shovel to him. My caravan got stuck in the storm a few weeks back and has sunk deep into the earth, she said. I tried to dig it out a day after the storm, but the earth was too soft and it was a futile mission. I figured it best to wait till the earth set and then dig it out. Your dad nodded and plunged the shovel into the earth near the wheel and pushed it deep in with his foot on the back of the shovel's nose. The soil is good now, he said as he pried the earth away from your mum's wheel and lifted it in the shovel and then tossed it aside. It shouldn't take too long. Thank you kindly, your mum said as she stood back. Your dad worked faithfully and silently, and your mum watched. She was trying to keep an eye that he didn't damage her wheel, but his rather nice muscular physique kept catching her eye, considering that he had no shirt on. How is it moved, this caravan? Your dad asked after digging for a bit. I pull it myself, your mum said with a proud smile. Yourself? Your dad asked with a wide-eyed wonder, his green-hued eyes staring into hers. Yes, your mum nodded. I am a traveller, a nomad. I move from market to market, selling my wares and reading auras to earn my keep. Fascinating, your dad said as he got back to work. Do you enjoy your work? Oh, very much so, your mum said with a smile. The conversation died then, and your mum kept watching as he worked, also noting that this handsome fairy human had a very sad tinge to his aura. She could tell he had been through something traumatic, but she wasn't sure exactly what. She could tell it had some very strong implications to it, though, like he could never return to something, and she concluded that that was the reason he was alone in the woods like this. She was intrigued as to how he was able to hold a human form for so long, but she also knew that fairies possessed powers, and figured this must have been his own magic. Your dad expertly got the front left wheel free of the dried mud, and then went to work on the front right wheel. Good sir, your mum asked as she walked around to watch him on the right-hand side of the caravan. Would you like some food? It is tiring work, is it not? Your dad stopped and wiped some sweat from his brow, one strand of his fringe falling across his forehead, and he flicked his head to move it back before giving your mum a smile. That would be lovely, he said with a kind smile. Thank you for your hospitality. Your mum's heart skipped a beat, but she remained calm and nodded and then turned to walk away back to the caravan. Your dad called as he stopped again. Forgive me, miss, but may I know your name? Your mum gave it and then asked for his in return. Your dad happily gave it and then returned to his work with a grin on his face, and your mum's steps to the caravan were a little lighter. After your dad got the other wheel free, he then stopped to have some food. Your mum had somehow cooked up a wild rice risotto with baby spinach leaves, wild mushrooms, and some dried spiced pumpkin that she had kept in her caravan storage, and your dad nearly fell over when she presented it to him. How did you make this? He asked with genuine surprise and awe in his voice. I have had many years of practice, your mum said as she passed it to him. Please accept this as a token of my appreciation for your help this morning. Oh, the pleasure is all mine. It's been a while since I had company, your dad admitted, then quickly tried to cover it up. Oh, I mean, human company, he added with averted eyes. Dad's trying to be slick. Stay tuned for part 4 coming tomorrow. I'll see you then.